podcast called Jellison podcast.
He probably doesn't remember this at all.
Report together. It's easy.
This is kind of real. Like, holy shit.
And so it's really cool to get to be a part of that.
Hey, you know how it is, Bill. Hey, when
you now tune into the biggest ever.
We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
I don't remember that. That's crazy.
What's up, everyone? We're back with episode 131 of the Jellison podcast. And today I have a very special guest, Miss Meghan McKeown. Meghan, how are you?
Hey, doing good, thank you. And thanks for having me on. Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays to you as well. Right off the bat, for people who might not be familiar with you, talk a little bit about who you work for and kind of what you do.
Yeah. So I am in my second full season with Big Ten Network as a women's basketball analyst for them. I also am a football reporter for them. And I am the Chicago Sky WNBA analyst. So a lot of basketball talk. I played Western. And that was where I had my career and come from a basketball background with coaching. My dad is the women's basketball coach at Northwestern. So I played for him, but just grew up around the game my whole entire life. So biased, it is my favorite sport in the world. Although football does come second. I do love football as well. And I've been a full-time analyst for 3 years now. So going on two or 3 years. So that's my background and what I'm doing now. And the Big Ten is the best it's ever been when it comes to women's basketball, especially. So this season has been a good time so far. If we can keep games on the schedule and not get them canceled because of COVID, that would be ideal.
For me, I'm a Purdue guy, so none of our games have got canceled. Thank God.
I don't think so. Yeah. Your women's team has done a really good job. I mean, obviously your men's team is elite, but your women's team has done a really nice job this year. They're 9-4, and Katie Gerald is now their new head coach, and I really like her. I think she's doing a really nice job taking over that program.
Yeah, I love KG. She's the absolute best. And you can tell that everyone's kind of rallying around her, and it was, as sad as it is to say, it was probably time for Coach Versip to head out, and all that extra stuff that went into that. That's neither here nor there, but we're in a really good place, something we haven't been able to say for a few years.
Yeah, and I just think that Katie Gerald, she's younger, so she has a lot of energy that she brings. She's also super competitive, which is a great trait for coaches to have, obviously, but her especially. She's had so much success at multiple levels, whether that be as a player, coach. So I think she's a great person for Purdue to have. Plus, she's passionate about the Boilers because she played for them.
Mm-hmm. It is really cool to see, how it feels like she's living in a dream. It's kind of crazy because, not a lot of coaches really do that anymore, vocalize that. Yeah.
Well, what's cool is that, there's actually multiple Big Ten coaches on the women's side that are playing at their alma mater, that are coaching rather at their alma mater. Nebraska's Amy Williams. She played there. Lindsay Whalen at Minnesota was a freaking rock star for the Gophers and the Minnesota Lynx as well. So you have 3 coaches, which is kind of unheard of, like you mentioned, who are now head coaches at their alma mater, which is pretty cool that we have, a conference that is so rich in tradition.
No doubt. I feel like a lot of people, maybe it's because we don't have necessarily the blue blood jobs that people search, like the UCLAs and for women's UConn and all that type of stuff. So I feel like a lot of our fan base is more of a family feel, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and you've had some traditionally, you've won a national title at Purdue, and there are so many great players. I think of Stephanie White, who works at Big Ten Network with us, who, was one of the best to ever play and put on a Purdue jersey. So many different, that tradition is very rich there on the women's side as well. I don't know off the top of my head how many Big Ten titles, but I know it's a lot. Back when I played at Northwestern, Purdue was really good. So, I tell you what, it's one of the most hostile environments, Mackey Arena. So I worked in Indianapolis as a sports reporter for 3.5 years, and we would come and cover the men's basketball games at Mackey. And every Purdue IU game, it's the most hostile but cool environment for college basketball. I was just talking to Robbie Hummel about this today. Sorry, I'm in my car and I just honked the horn. it's fine, whatever. But that being said, your students are so loud and like obnoxious to opponents. And I know like my dad says all this time as an opposing coach, they always put you right next to the opposing bench. And that band is brutal. Like they're ruthless. He always is like, man, they just get after me. So really cool to support that Purdue has. And I mean, it gets loud in there. It's hostile. I mean, one of the best fan bases I've been around for sure.
When I go in there to cover games and whatnot, I mean, even go to games, my ears are like ringing for 3 hours afterwards. So
Absolutely.
it's like a gift. You better not go in there with a headache.
No, don't.
You might pass out because all the sounds bouncing off the walls and everything's, and then we're so passionate anyway. So I mean, just everything, it's ridiculous.
I know it's a lot of fun. I love how you guys do like a little scouting report of the opponent before, like the paint crew does. I mean, you guys are ruthless, and I love every moment of it.
There's a lot of really good arenas in the Big Ten, though. In my like, obviously, as a Purdue guy, I'll get hate for it, but I loved Assembly Hall when I went. I thought it was really cool.
I think it's a great atmosphere for college basketball. I hated playing there. The depth perception from the corner three is really it's hard to measure. So I shouldn't like playing there. I just thought it was kind of overrated. I don't know if anyone from IU is going to watch this and be like, wow, screw. But like, I just from the standpoint as a player, I didn't like playing there because of that. But some great arenas regarding like, I mean, I love playing at the bar in Minnesota, Williams Arena. That place is great. And just, again, another place full of tradition with the raised court. Back before Nebraska's now in this like beautiful new arena, but they had an old arena that was sick when they first joined the Big Ten that I really enjoyed playing at. I always enjoy playing at like the Breslin Center, Michigan State's arena. Very cool. So those, I mean, you have so many that are, you know, so rich in tradition and have seen a lot of great basketball throughout the decades.
Yeah, a lot of the guys on the men's side I've had on said that one of their favorites to play at was Maryland's, which was kind of surprising to me. I never thought of that as like a super hostile.
You know, it's funny because I'm from the DC area originally. I grew up there, so I would have a lot of basketball tournaments at the Comcast Center growing up. I don't know if it's called the Comcast. It might be called Xfinity. No, I don't know what it's called. Regardless, I like it's a cool college basketball atmosphere. And what people don't realize about Maryland is that, I mean, that's an ACC school, you know, first and foremost, and they've won a title. Back in the day, like those Maryland Duke rivalries were great. So like that's a program. I mean, Gary Williams was such a storied coach, not only in the ACC, but in college basketball overall. So a lot of, again, great tradition. I feel like I've said it like 75 times at this point with this conference, but Maryland, I think, was a great addition from the standpoint. I know people are like, oh, but football, they're not quite there. But from a basketball standpoint, actually, like literally every sport, I mean, their women's basketball team is one of the best in the country. So you have so much talent out there on the East. I know a lot of it was to get like TV rights and try to bring the DC, Maryland, Virginia market into, you know, the Big Ten territory, but they're really good.
Mm-hmm. And for you, how hard is it for you to, I want to kind of transition to your job and your career. How hard is it for you to balance all those things? Like you said, you're doing the Chicago Sky, you're doing Big Ten football, Big Ten women's basketball. How hard is that to manage and keep up with?
That's a great question. I was just talking to my mom this week and I was like, this is my first week in 9 weeks that I'm not going to Chicago O'Hare Airport. So that I was like, it's kind of nice not having to make that trek out there. You know, I love doing it first and foremost. It's really hard. So I thankfully, like for like the WNBA season is like May through September normally. And then football kind of starts in August. And that's only once a week normally. So, or I mean, twice if you have travel day. But when like I've got basketball and football that I'm doing, I mean, it's a grind. You really have to take it one day at a time because I can't like get too far ahead of myself or I'll get overwhelmed. It's kind of hard to transition back and forth between sports. And from the standpoint of like my role is different on a broadcast regarding what sport I'm doing. So like on a basketball broadcast, I'm the analyst. So I'm talking all hoops, X's and O's. And there's a different approach I take to like my style of broadcasting. Whereas when I'm doing a football game, it's more polished reporter. Like you have to really kind of get into your what your storyline nuggets are versus being like a basketball talker when analyzing a game. So to go back and forth between the two like quickly I have to like be like, wait, what am I doing? Where am I? The nice thing about basketball is it's an indoor sport, and outside when November football, I was at Ohio State like back in mid-November and it was snowing and I was like, why am I here? What am I doing? But it was awesome. Actually, they were playing Purdue. So yeah, that was a rough game for the Boilers. Rough game for me just watching it because I got bored when they went up like 45-3 in the first half. So, but it is what it is. But yeah, it's hard to balance for sure. And you have to, make a lot of sacrifices. I miss a lot of things. But like for me, it's worth it because I look at it as like I'm grinding it out now. And I'm hoping that I will reap the benefits and reap the rewards one day down the line.
Hey, no, I think you will, no doubt. It is nice to know that at least when you're going home and you're going to the studio and things like that, you're at least close to your family. Like you said, your dad coach at Northwestern. So
yeah,
how far that is away from Evanston to Chicago, aren't they? Like right next to each other?
Right. Yeah, it's like West Lafayette to Lafayette. It is right next to each other. So really close. And I've been so fortunate that things have worked out for me at Big Ten Network and being in Chicago. It's easy to get anywhere when you're in Chicago. I've lived here. I moved back in 2019 from Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I've just like really been able to find a niche and continue to like get better, which is really like my biggest advice to young people is go somewhere where you can get reps. And for me, I was in Indiana for 5 years working in local news, and I was able to get a ton of reps there, and I can make mistakes and, didn't go viral for making any mistakes because there weren't enough people watching it. But it really helped me get polished and it gave me so much perspective, and I appreciate what I have so much more because I worked in local news for 5 years.
Yeah, I feel like me getting into that whole like jobs and everything like that. Everyone wants like that ESPN, Big Ten Network, Fox Sports, whatever.
Yeah.
But all the people that I've talked to, fortunately, on this podcast, they've all taken like not low level jobs, but places where they knew that they would get the opportunities to work on their craft. Like I had Taylor Tannenbaum on. I don't know.
That's one of my good friends. She's the best. I love Taylor. She rocks.
She is. She's awesome. And I think she said she started in Dothan, Alabama.
Yeah, she started in Alabama.
And then she's at WTHR now. And
yeah. No, she's a rock star. She's somebody like we've bonded over having to work in local news and shoot for yourself. And she's a grinder too. So, but like you learn how to do everything when you work in local news. Like you learn how to shoot, produce, edit, be on camera, and you have such a greater I have such a great appreciation that I get to leave right after a game ends. And I don't have any extra things to do. I just like hand my mic back to the audio person and I'm on my way. And like that to me is such a blessing because it's so hard to like have to break everything down and then, wait for a coach. Like being on network TV, like it's great because like you get priority with coaches, with players. I don't ever have to like wait for press conferences. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, and there's obviously an advantage to being in local news and having to do all those things like you said, because if you don't know where your career is going to take you, if you don't do those things and you're asked of it at one of the bigger networks like BTN, you're kind of screwed.
100%. So and I just think overall, like people doing the hiring like to hire people who have experience. And like, yeah, did I want to live in Terre? I grew up in Washington, D.C. I moved to Chicago when I was a teenager. I went to school at Northwestern, which is in Chicago. And I had to go to Terre Haute, Indiana. And I was like, I'm the ultimate city girl. Okay. Like, I'm not like, if you're on Survivor, you don't want me with you. Like, if you're stuck on stranded on an island, I'm not the person you want if we're going to survive. Like, I am as bougie and city girl-esque as they come. But that being said, like, I'm so thankful that I had the experience of going to a small town like a Terre Haute in the middle of nowhere, where I was able to really like learn the craft and, find my voice and find exactly like how I could improve and learn some skills I didn't know I needed that have translated over to like my career now.
Mm-hmm. And there's also something to be said for kind of stepping out of your comfort zone and going to Terre Haute. which I've only.
I tell you what, believe it or not, there are some I have a new appreciation for dive bars after living in Terre Haute, because like there are some great ones out there. The cabin, karaoke every Wednesday night, man. Like I was off. And also you have an appreciation for your schedule. Like I worked nights and weekends for 5 years. I had 10 vacation days a year. I mean, I missed so much. I still miss a lot, but like, it's not nearly as like it used to be. And I have so much more flexibility with my schedule and what I'm able to, do, which is nice.
And what is it like for you? I mean, doing all these different things around the holidays specifically.
Yeah,
super hectic, or is it kind of like normal?
It's pretty hectic. It's been hectic like this week, especially. I've been doing a lot of studio work for Big Ten Network. So I've been like kind of in the office, for lack of better words, for the last couple of days. What's been crazy, honestly, and I don't know exactly what normal is going to look like because COVID, is still affecting us so much. So like I was supposed to have a game. I was supposed to have a game on New Year's Eve, but that's going to get canceled. So I don't know if they're going to like add something else in or what. So, but I know the game I'm supposed to is canceled. So a lot of adjustments we're making. And I can't help but think that after the like holiday break, when teams come back, I mean, everyone's going to test and so many people are going to have it. So I would imagine we're going to see a lot more cancellations coming. But the holidays have been hectic for sure. Like I haven't actually, I get a couple of days break. I'm really excited to go home and have that victory glass of wine that I'm going to be enjoying. But yeah, like but I'm so thankful that I get to do this. Like I do what I love, and I get to travel and see like so many great places, and I get to interact with like the most elite coaches and athletes, in the country. And I just feel very fortunate that I'm afforded the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. I mean, you're getting paid to watch sports and talk about.
Yeah,
what else?
Exactly. They're paying me to talk. Like, are you kidding me?
I mean,
what more could you want?
Exactly. And then, I mean, when did you know that this is something that you wanted to get into?
I'm like a weird, crazy psychopath person, in that like I knew what I wanted to do when I was 16. We had just moved to Chicago, and the Big Ten Network actually came out to my house to do a story on my family, because we moved basically because I have a brother with autism. His name's Joey. And the services for people with autism were much better in Chicago than they were in DC at the time. So Big Ten Network came out and did a segment or did a story on us, and I was in it, and they interviewed me for it. And I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. The storytelling aspect, how like you could, really like reach so many people. And there's like a sense of community that comes with sports, right? Like you could all come from different backgrounds, but because you have, a love over the Packers or a love over Purdue or whatever it might be, like you bond. And so I thought that concept was so cool. I also grew up like loving sports. I was a total tomboy, played basketball my whole life. My mom's from Oklahoma. She's a massive football fan, Boomer Sooner. I mean, like I grew up every Saturday morning, mom had college game day on. So like I was around it, and I love sports, but ultimately like I love storytelling, and kind of went from there. But I don't think, for the record, you do not have to know what you want to do in life at 16. You can like figure it out when you're 30. Like I just turned. Like you don't need to know what you're doing. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm on my third major at Purdue. I came in
good for you.
As like education.
Seriously, good for you.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a long story, but it wasn't like my choosing. Is like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. A couple of things were taken from me, I guess. Shot myself in the foot with grades and whatnot, but we won't get into that.
Happens.
But yeah, I mean, I didn't really find this and everything that I want to do until I was like 20.
Yeah.
About almost 2 years.
That's how it is for some people, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So good for you for exploring as much as you did.
Thank you. How much do you think your dad has played an impact, not only in obviously playing at Northwestern, but just having that knowledge of the game that you can translate into everything that you're doing now?
His impact on me has been massive. I mean, first off, he's like my best friend. What a funny man that guy is. But more importantly, like I grew up around the game so much. I was born on November 11th, and 10 days later we had a Thanksgiving tournament in Vegas, and I was on the plane going to the Thanksgiving tournament. So I've literally been around the game my whole entire life. Like beginning of November is basketball season. So like when I grew up, I would go to practice with my dad and they would set up like a TV for me, like watching Beauty and the Beast while like he ran practice. I used to go recruiting with my dad and I would like keep notes. It was cool because he would like let me pick out the rental car we got, which was like very exciting stuff for a 6-year-old. And then like I would get to stay up past my bedtime if I was watching film with dad. And so like I didn't want to go to sleep. So we stayed up and watched film. And I just learned so much from him. He was like always kind of like my idol growing up and I wanted to be like him. So yeah, he's my best bud and watched a lot of Philadelphia Eagles games too. Side note. We are football. Like I said, we're football fans in the McKeown household. So yeah, it was like he's played a massive role. I know I don't ever want to get into coaching because I think it's so hard and I see what he does and I mean, my goodness, it's so difficult. But yeah, he's had a big influence.
And then now, how weird is it to have to, I mean, not have to cover your dad, but to be able to cover your dad's team and have to like critique him when he needs it and things like that.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's a true honor that I'm able to do it. And it's an honor that the coaches in the Big Ten, like, don't ever, they don't have an issue with it. And a lot of that, I am really professional and I am neutral. And when I'm doing his games, like I'm a broadcaster and I have my broadcast hat on. And so I'm able to distinguish, he's Coach McKeown and this is Northwestern versus like, if I'm watching as a coach's daughter, I'm like losing my freaking mind and like screaming at everything. But, like to stay neutral, I am somehow able to like to get into a mental space where I can separate the two things. And if I have to be, my job is to be critical and it's nothing I wouldn't say to his face anyways. In fact, I'm probably being more diplomatic on a broadcast versus in person. A lot less curse words, that's for sure.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Was it hard to find that line of being neutral, like you said, like when you first got into it? Because I mean, for me, like if I was supposed to go call Purdue game right now, the people would want to burn me down because I'd be so bad. But
IU fans would be mad at you.
Yeah.
It's hard to find that happy. As a journalist, you're supposed to be neutral and you have to understand the story is never about you. And that's the same like type of approach I recommend people take. Like you have to tell the story of the game and the story of the game is not always going to be all about Purdue, right? Like Purdue's going to suck at times and IU's going to make some runs and vice versa. IU's going to suck sometimes and you can talk about Purdue, but you can't be biased. It's not fair. And that's like not the point. I think we like live in such a world now where like the media has this reputation of being so biased, but you have to be really careful and like take professionalism seriously.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. I mean, we could talk about media and being and all that stuff for days, but how often do you and your dad talk about just like strictly basketball?
What's funny is he calls me after all of his games usually, and we break down what happened. Unfortunately, I work so much that like I don't always get to see his games. A lot of times I'll have a game, so I'll have to like go back and watch it. But we talk about strictly basketball maybe like 20% of the time. Most of the time we're just like shooting the breeze, like roasting each other, and like my sister and I will just roast my dad as much as possible. That's really our MO with him. But he's a great sport. And he's a legend in this game. He's one of the winningest all-time coaches in women's college basketball, and he's already in Hall of Fames, and he will continue to do so. So we're really proud of him.
Yeah, how special is that for you guys? Like your whole thing, just to know that your dad is like not only has all the accolades and the wins and everything like that, but I mean is well respected by everybody in basketball.
What I'm most proud of with him is like, yes, he's known as like a great basketball mind. I'm so proud. Everyone who talks to me about him is like, he's the best guy ever. And he is. My dad has this like special knack where like he makes you feel like you're the most important person in the room. And I think like life skill wise, like that's what makes him so special. Like, yes, like his basketball IQ and like all the accolades are excellent, but it's also like what Huey is as a person. He knows the name of every single janitor, that works at Northwestern. He talks to everyone. He makes people just like feel like they're important, and they are. And it's genuine. So I think like that authenticity that he has is what makes him such a special coach and person.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go back to kind of how I was introduced to you. Obviously, you worked in Indy, like you said. So, I mean, I've lived in Indy my entire life. What was your time in Indy like, and how do you look back on it?
My time in Indianapolis was fantastic. I mean, I learned so much, and I credit like my boss, Anthony Calhoun at Wish TV, who, I mean, has been a great mentor and friend to me and continues to be so. I learned so much from the standpoint. I learned what it was like to cover pro teams. I got to cover Andrew Luck in the Colts. And I mean, who knew that I would be a part of his last season? Like, I had no idea I would be covering his last season. I don't think anyone knew that at the time. And to cover events like the Indianapolis 500, I had such an appreciation for athletes in general because I was able to cover such a variety of things. And also just like you learn how to like handle yourself with a level of professionalism. You learn what it's like to cover pro sports. And I got to do so much at Wish. I got to travel. I got to report, host, anchor, interview people. I was given so much. I was given so many opportunities, and I felt like it totally benefited and prepared me for what I'm doing now.
If there's something that sticks out as like the most memorable thing you got to do in your time there, what do you think it would be?
Oh my goodness, it's such a good question. I think covering the Indianapolis 500 was so cool. And I knew nothing about racing headed into it. I learned a lot. Now I know a lot about racing, but I have such an appreciation for those athletes. I loved covering the Indianapolis 500. I think I got to cover 4 of them. And it was my favorite event to cover 100% every time. That was like any of them were really memorable. Alexander Rossi, only because I said he was going to win, and he did. It was my first Indy 500. I was like, wow, I am a genius. Not really, because I was like, I really don't know that much. But I think the Indy 500s were my favorite events to cover.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not from Indy, you really don't understand the magnitude of that until you're there.
No, you don't.
It's absolutely insane.
No.
You can't even describe it. Honestly.
No, you really can't. And like, I think, when they're singing the national anthem, they're singing Amazing Grace, all the things, and the flyover happens. It's like, it's incredible. I have chills thinking about it. It's amazing. Truly the greatest spectacle in racing.
Hey, no doubt. I remember when you announced that you were leaving, I was reading your thing, and you were talking about interviewing like Peyton Manning and Letterman and Larry Bird. So I was curious, how nervous were you for those, and how did you overcome those nerves? Because I would be peeing myself.
What's so funny? Like, I don't know, you just kind of like go into, I think like one of the biggest, I've learned this more so now versus when I was in Indianapolis, but like, they're just people. I mean, like at the end of the day, like they put both their legs into pants the way we do, right? Like, I mean, they're normal. I think like I have a lot of respect for their accomplishments for sure. Peyton Manning was cool. I remember the first time I interviewed him was the first time I was ever like really starstruck. But he's such a nice guy that it was very just like easy to ask him questions. He's so professional. I mean, all those people that you interview, like they're used to high levels of media coverage. So they're so pleasant to talk to. And I just think, again, if you can like get into your mindset when I'm in my reporter mode, now at this point, like I've interviewed, tons of, PJ Fleck, Ryan Day, CJ Stroud, who was a Heisman candidate, and like, you just kind of like, I'm able now to kind of get more into a mindset of like, okay, it's just a person I'm reporting, like it is what it is. My job is to tell the story. It's not about me, right? It's about like connecting the person you're interviewing to the viewer. And once I can like think like that, it helps to ease any nerves you might have.
Yeah, it took me a while to do that. Like I'm on episode, 131, and I remember the first like pro athlete I ever had on. I literally threw up before we got on the Zoom call.
Who was it?
His name is Jordan Williams. I'm type 1 diabetic, and so is he. He's a UFC fighter.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I mean, we've become good friends. So that was bad. That was really bad. And then like the only 2 other ones I can remember that I was like that nervous was Matt Painter and Dwight Freeney. Because those are
Dwight Freeney's scary, I feel like, but I remember interviewing Robert Mathis and being really nervous because I thought he was scary, but he was actually really nice. Matt Painter is like one of the best. He's awesome. He rocks. Yeah.
Yeah, but just to be around, it takes you a while to realize like, oh yeah, like you said, these are just people. But I mean, when you're first talking to him, you're like, oh, I've looked up to this dude since I was 4 years old. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, totally. I completely get it. Yeah.
And then kind of going on to your new jobs with everything you're doing with BT and Chicago Sky, was it a no-brainer for you to take that opportunity?
Oh, for sure. I mean, like, and a lot of it was like me trying to knock down the door and create these opportunities for myself. And I was, I was fortunate to like network and kind of work my way into it. And I've had great mentors. Like I look at like Lisa Byington, is one of my big mentors, and she helped me in so many different ways. And we had really hard talks. And, she really helped set like my perspective with how to handle things and taught me a lot about that. So I just think it's really important to have good mentors and, those types of, as I turn a light on, we're getting dark over here. Sorry. I think that's just the most important part when going forth with any type of big career decision.
And I know we're close on time, so I just want to ask you one more thing.
Yeah.
For other athletes, what advice would you give them if they're interested in getting into any type of media, whether it be journalism, broadcasting, podcasts, right? It doesn't matter. What advice would you give them to get them started?
I think for athletes especially, you have to find a way to separate yourself from other people, and like you separate yourself because you have an experience that a lot of people don't have. So I think the number one trait in people, and I'll say this, it's authenticity. I spoke with one of the heads who hires for Sports Center, and I asked him, what's the number one thing you look for in talent? And he said, I want authenticity. That's all we want right now. In a world where like everything's so fake and like constructed to, come across a certain way. I mean, people crave authenticity. I know I do. I think about like celebrities I like most, they're super authentic. And so athlete, non-athlete, whoever it might be, just like find a way to truly be yourself and have it come across.
That's some damn good advice. I had never heard that before, actually.
Yeah, be yourself, man. That's all you can do at the end of the day.
Right on. Well, like I said, I'm gonna wrap this up, but I really appreciate you taking the time to do this
Absolutely.
from the car on your commute.
There we go. Getting it done.
It was awesome. I wish nothing but the best for you and the family, and hopefully you guys have a happy and healthy holidays.
Thank you. Same to you. Stay happy, healthy, and safe. And best of luck to your Boilers this year.
Yes, ma'am. All right.